The information provided on this podcast is for general informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your qualified health provider with any questions you may have. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. Reliance on any information provided here is solely at your own risk.
Welcome. This is Birth, Baby. Your hosts are Sierra Morgan and Samantha Kelly. Sierra is a birth doula, hypnobirthing educator, and pediatric sleep consultant.
Samantha is a birth doula, childbirth educator, and lactation counselor. Join us as we guide you through your options for your pregnancy, birth, and postpartum journey. Thank you to our listeners for your continued support. If you enjoy our content, please be sure to like, follow, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. This helps us gain visibility to other people that could benefit from listening in. Hello, everyone. Today we have with us Matthew and Shanon Morris. Matthew is a United States Marine Corps veteran and former AH-1Z pilot, who within a year of being medically separated from the Marines became a father and published his first book. And he traveled to 15 countries in order to attempt to answer the question, what is the partner's purpose during pregnancy? Shanon is a Navy veteran, military spouse, and founder of a company called Hop On and Hold On. She's passionate about building resilient relationships at home and in the workplace. And they together now reside in Chicago with their 7-month-old daughter, who you may hear little peeps from here in this episode. And together they enjoy pole fitness, studying Chinese, and they're preparing for their second book, The Partner's Purpose Postpartum. So thank you guys so much for being here today with us.
Thank you for having us.
We're so excited to have you on. Your book is just such a great resource, I think, for partners, really anybody who's trying to figure out, like, what is my role in this supposed to be? How can I be most helpful to my partner while they're going through this pregnancy and birth experience? I just think it's such a fantastic resource. So I'm so excited to have you on and to hear a little bit about it. To start off, can you share with us a little bit about what inspired you to write this book?
Absolutely, Sam. So necessity, as it is the mother of all invention. When we found out that Shanon was pregnant, I went to mentors, went to some more experienced folks, even went to members of my command, specifically one of my commanders. And I said, hey, my wife's pregnant. What advice do you have for me? And in the traditional Marine Corps fashion, I was looked at and said, you'll figure it out. And I said, what? Okay.
That's not helpful.
Yeah, right. Thanks. And then from there, I started doing my own personal research. I started going into every rabbit hole, from the aggressively medically doctrinal, such as the Mayo Clinic's Guide to Pregnancy, which is a thrilling read. If you haven't cracked the pages of that, I highly recommend it. All the way across the spectrum to The Birthing Partner, which is, from my understanding, kind of the guidebook, or was the guidebook for doulas. And yes. So you have, and then dozens of readings in between, trying to figure out what my purpose in this whole thing was. I contributed, but then once baby was on the way, it was like, okay, now what do I do? And so much of my mindset was, well, she's pregnant, and the royal they use pregnancy as a sickness almost, because we would go to appointments and they would give her diagnoses, and then they would say, well, these are the symptoms that you're going to have. And I was like, she's not sick. She's the opposite of sick. She's all of this good. why are you talking to her like she's got some illness? And they said, well, in fact, she has a parasite and it's growing inside her and there's nothing you can do about it.
You're ridiculous.
And so,
I love it. My
like
best friend
sometimes.
always said that. She was like, I have a parasite and it's just feeding on me in my body.
And so from all of that, one of the ways that I tried to manage my own personal anxiety was to start writing things down, right? If I did something, I would journal it, especially if it got positive feedback from Shanon, like cooking. Cooking has always been something that I enjoyed. It's a stress reliever for me. It is the opposite of those things for Shanon. She does not enjoy the act of cooking. She's a wonderful cook. She's a phenomenal baker, but it doesn't make her happy. And so during the pregnancy, I spent copious amounts of time connecting with my sister, who is a chef, and doing my own personal research to take that particular chore off of her plate. And that just kind of led to, okay, this is something that I did. I bet if my wife appreciated this, maybe someone else's wife will appreciate something similar. So document this. And then when we had to come back to the United States at 35 weeks pregnant, we had the opportunity, and by opportunity, I mean I needed to decompress. I know Shanon needed to decompress, so we retreated into the woods of Indiana for about a week. We took all of these notes that I had from traveling all over multiple countries, interviewing multiple families from all kinds of backgrounds, and Shanon said, you're going to take all that and you're going to put it into something clear, concise, and practical. And I said, okay. And so with no technology aside from the alarm clocks that we had, we spent a week going through line by line and building the partner's purpose during pregnancy. I wrote it out. Shanon did the editing. Shanon also did all of the illustrations, right? And from that, we've given birth to not only our beautiful baby, but this guide that is written so that someone with an 8th grade education can go through it from cover to cover in about 2 hours. And everything in it, even though it might have been my idea, was vetted by her. Because when we originally drafted it, there were 55 purposes. And when she sent me the review back, there were only 33. And I said, hey, what happened to the others? And she very candidly said, no, those might have felt like something that was good, but I'm giving you feedback. Don't do that.
Right? Don't you love editors?
Well, but my editor was also the person who lived it.
Yeah.
Right. And so that is why it's so valuable. And I wish at first appointment we had the medical professional had said, okay, here's all of this information. Here's a copy of the partner's purpose during pregnancy. Use it as your left and right lateral limits. You are not alone in this fight. And if you have any questions, please call. As opposed to, well, we got other feedback that was not quite as helpful. So,
yeah, I think that one of my favorite things. So, for the people listening, I got to have an awesome conversation with Matthew and Shanon a few weeks back. And we kind of like, what would we want to talk about on a podcast episode? And Sam was at a birth that day and didn't get to join us. And one of my favorite things you said was, like, we talked about kind of what pieces would you want people to know? And we talked about the difference between some people are able to be physically present during their partner's pregnancy and some people are not. And especially being a military family, that's even though you guys were out of the military at that point, that is something that was very much in your head. And people that have listened to my birth story, I think, know that I was a military spouse originally with my first child. And so I very much understand like going into the field for multiple weeks at a time, or having to, do little, I'm not going to use the technical words, but like little duty changes, station changes where they have to go away for even a month or something like that. And those all can happen whether you're pregnant or not. And so we talked about the differences on how you can be physically supportive when you're in person and how you can be, if you're traveling or whatever. And that is applicable to people of all backgrounds, not just military. So can you give us a couple of little pieces of advice from the book, some teasers maybe, that people that are physically able to be present throughout the pregnancy, what are some of your biggest pieces of advice to them on how to do that?
Absolutely. Sam, do you have a copy of PPTP on you?
I sure do.
Okay.
Right next to me.
What is the first purpose?
The first purpose. Let's see.
This is a pop quiz.
I like it.
On the Birth
I
Baby
didn't memorize
podcast.
the whole thing. The first purpose is to be there.
That's right.
Be there.
So this goes for whether you are remote, whether you are able to physically be in the room or not, right? The most important thing is to just show up, right? If you have the ability to go to the appointments, if you have the ability to participate in building the plan, right? Do it. When you find out that you're pregnant, fortunately, there's a timeline that's associated with it that you can take to your respective employers. And you can say, okay, I know that these appointments are coming. I know these appointments are coming, so I can plan this stuff far in advance, right? And then when you're not at the appointments, when it's just the two of you, put your phone away, put your laptop away, and be where your feet are, okay? If you're sitting in the room with your spouse and they are trying to talk to you about something that they're experiencing, and you're like, yep, yeah, that's tough, babe. Yep. I know. Oh God, that's yeah.
It's that phone scroll, right?
Right? And we're all guilty of it. I am the worst about it, right? Prioritize, right? Just be there. Be present. Okay. Now let's shift. Hey, I'm deployed. Hey, I'm on a business trip. Hey, I work in another state. I work in another country. Okay. Where are you guys right now?
I am near Austin, Texas.
Okay.
Also near Austin, Texas. Okay. Yep.
You guys are in Austin, Texas. I'm in Barcelona, Spain.
No, you're not. Are y'all really? Nice trip. Okay. I'm jealous.
Don't be jealous. Just be here.
I thought you were in Chicago.
We were when you and I talked.
I'm loving that you're just talking to us, and even on your trip. That's wonderful. We feel quite special. Thanks.
And that's how you do it.
Yeah.
Okay. We are 7 hours apart across the Atlantic Ocean from each other. And we are able to make this work. Right? Not being in the same room anymore is no longer an excuse. Right?
It was the norm for so many years during COVID. We found ways around it. We can do it now.
We're even better at it now, for sure.
Yeah.
So make it happen, right? Yes, I want to be there and I want to hug you and I want you to put your head in my lap when you're going through a hard day. But if you can't, right, before you leave, help her build her tribe, right? If you're not going to be the person who's physically there, who is going to be there, right? Is it mom? Is it mother-in-law? Is it best friend? Is it the roommate from college, right? So long as it's not the milkman, help her establish that resource network before she leaves.
Being part of the
Or you.
process is so
Right.
important. I just had a family scheduling birth classes with us. And this is not just for appointments, Sometimes we feel like we can do the things alone because we're like, I'm a strong woman. I've got it. If you don't go, fine. But really, I had a mom ask me, like, is it okay if, your class is 5 classes in a row? That's a lot. And the dads are feeling a little overwhelmed about how many classes there are. And it's 2.5 hours each time. Are there certain ones that would be better for dads? Like if we missed certain ones, which ones would be the ones that would be good for dads to miss? And I said, lovingly and respectfully, this is his first opportunity to show up. And if you allow them to just not allow, but you know what I mean? Like, if you're like, yeah, sure, fine, about missing these classes, this is establishing a norm in your relationship that it's not important for you to be at all the things. And like, you can be a part-time parent and a part-time partner, and they're going to miss out on some of the things that are in the other classes. And they're not going to be able to be as present for you when the time comes because they didn't learn all the things. And so what if they find some of the class pointless for them? Being there, simply showing up, is such a huge piece of feeling supported and not feeling like you're in this alone. And so I love that you're saying that, because I also have an option for people to Zoom in from wherever they are on their business trip. Like, there's no excuse to miss my class unless you have a literal meeting at that exact same time, And I think that not enough people realize that being there, that's an emotional thing. Being there physically is great, but being there, if you're physically there and you're not emotionally there, doesn't matter. So I love that you're making that distinction where that can happen from anywhere.
Yeah, I think you had a couple of really great little tidbits in your book that really stuck out to me. And one of them was, you don't really have to know everything, but you do need to know where to access that good information. And I just thought, like, that's so important, because there is so much to know about birth. And even as birth professionals, Sierra and I 100% do not know everything. But we want our partners to know, where can I go to find that good information, whether that's coming to the birth class, talking to the doula, knowing how to just like look for good information online and not just, somebody's blog with their opinion on things somewhere. Like, there's so many good little pieces, because you can't know everything. It's just not possible.
So you're hitting the nail on the head. And quick war story. My entire time flying, every flight you do, you have a pre-brief, which is generally a few days before, where you build all of the things that go into the brief and the mission. Then during the brief, you're going to get asked questions. You're going to give all of the information that you can. Then someone is going to ask you, right? At no point do you ever stop getting asked questions. I watched the commander of my squadron get an very advanced qualification, and he was grilled. This is the 20 plus year trilingual lieutenant colonel commanding a squadron in another country. And he is getting asked these questions, right? It never stops. And with that, at some point, you are going to get asked a question that you don't know the answer to, whether it's prepping for a flight or in the world of pregnancy. You're gonna ask a question, and the doula's not gonna know the answer. And what is less important than knowing the answer right at that moment is or what's more important than maybe knowing the answer right at that moment, is knowing where to go to get the answer. Right? And that is one of my biggest lessons was I'm trying to pull information from birth professionals, our doula, our midwife team, our personal doctors, the pediatrician, pulling all of this information so that it's in an accessible place later. Because you have to be able to make an informed decision, right? That's the whole point of all of this, is you have to make the choice on behalf of yourself, your family, your baby, based on what you know. And the education piece is where that's so important. And Shanon, you pinged me on something else. What was this one? No. That goes in, Advocation. Thank you. Okay. You're pulling all of this information. You're trying to make the right decision. If you're there or if you're not, you have a responsibility to advocate for your partner, right? We talk about this in there a pretty fair amount. I learned that there's a thing called medical consent. I didn't know that, right? I have had multiple surgeries when I was active duty, and it never once occurred to me to say no, right? Hey, go to the doc, get the shots that you need to get, have the procedures that you need to have, and then get back in line.
Yeah.
Okay. And when it was me, yeah, I got a couple of second opinions on major surgeries, but for the most part, it was the same thing. It was like, yeah, this is what we're going to do. We're going to have to put these screws in this leg, and we're going to have to put this in, and you're going to have to do this therapy, and that's what's going to happen. Oh, okay. But when it is my wife in the most vulnerable part of her life, where she's operating in a brain fog, I am the one who has to know that she doesn't have to say yes to everything.
Yeah.
And if I didn't show up to the class that you have dedicated, right? Because the classes aren't just for mom. And that's the biggest part. It's not just for mom. It's for anyone who's going to be involved in that process.
Amen.
Right? If I'm deployed, or if I'm out of state, out of country on work, that's not the excuse to not get the information. Right?
Right.
Because part of that learning is learning how to advocate. Yeah. And I'm not saying that you be an asshole to the doc or to the midwife.
As explicit warning to the episode. I'm just kidding.
We love it. We love it. We're teasing.
You're totally fine. I'm teasing you.
Be respectful, but be informed.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's such a huge, I don't think, I mean, we say this all the time. Learning to advocate for yourself during pregnancy and during birth, and learning to advocate for your partner during pregnancy and during birth, is the best training for parenthood, because this is going to be parenthood for the next 18 to, 25 years, maybe longer for your children. You're going to have to advocate for every little thing for them. And we don't really learn that as a skill until we're there in pregnancy, when we do, like you were saying at the beginning, it's kind of treated as a medical event. It's not necessarily a medical event. So we need to kind of learn how to make the choices that are right for us, right for our bodies, right for our baby, and learn how to communicate that with our providers and our care team. And I just think that's such a great jumping off place for learning how to advocate for your children. It's like a crash course in advocacy.
We have a mom yesterday that was like apologizing for asking us so many questions. And she was also butting up against her midwife about something, which I kind of love, because people just think that if you have a midwife, like, you're just going to agree all the time. And that's not necessarily true. And so, sometimes there's policies at the place that, yeah, exactly. Sometimes there's policies at the place that you're going that maybe your midwife doesn't even want to do, but they have to because they work in that place. And so she was like, I'm so sorry for asking questions, you guys. I know I'm asking a lot. And we're like, no, we want you to be asking these questions, because if you don't have all the information, you can't give informed consent because you don't know what all of your choices were. And I think that is, if the other side, if the partner doesn't also know what all of those choices are, then they can't bring up those other things. And like you said, brain fog. During pregnancy, I joke that our kids just steal all our brain cells. Like, I still didn't get all mine back. I have 2 kids. I have very diminished brain capacity now. And when you are pregnant, you do have this lower level of brain functioning. It does not work as quickly because your body is doing so many things at once. And it takes a little while for that to return as well. So a partner's job has to be stepping in and stepping up and knowing what you wanted. Like, if you don't know what your partner wanted, how can you advocate for it if you guys aren't having these conversations? So I really love that you put all of these things into one place in your book to have a jumping off point, because when we chatted before, you were like, I was going to 1,000 different books to look for all of this information, and I still didn't feel like I was getting what I needed. And so we're really excited to have this as a resource to give to parents.
Yeah. To all of the up and coming partners, I did the work for you. Okay?
I'll rate it.
And I'm not saying that this is the end all be all and this is the only thing that you should study. Please don't. That's the wrong opposite of everything. But my God, when it's 2:00 in the morning and you're sleep deprived and you're just trying to help and you don't know how, and your wife is also sleep deprived and in pain and looking down and she can no longer see her feet, right? And you walk up to her and say, sweetheart, how can I help? And she reaches for the closest blunt object. Because yes, she might want help, but she does not want to explain it to you, right? This is what we refer to as an 80% solution, right? Do you have all of the answers before you push onto a mission? Of course not. It's not possible. Even if everything that you had laid out in front of you was accurate at the time you got it, you are operating in a real world environment. And so what might have been true a week ago, 2 days ago, 2 hours ago, might not be true in the moment.
Yeah, I think it's such a great jumping off place for partners who are maybe overwhelmed by the beginning of this journey and I don't know what to do. There's so many things. Where can I start? I think this is a perfect place to start. And from there you can start figuring out, okay, so where am I going to go to get this other information? Maybe once you've read this book, you're like, actually, maybe I would like to read through the Mayo Clinic Guide to Pregnancy thing. Good luck to you. I still have a hard time getting through it, but more power to you for it. So if people want to find your book or learn more about your mission, how can they find you?
Yeah.
And we'll make sure we add this to the show notes as well.
Yeah. The Partner's Purpose during pregnancy. Sorry.
No pregnancy. No during pregnancy.
thepartnerspurpose.com and then at The Partner's Purpose.
Amazing.
I love that she's back there telling you what to do. This is exactly what partners need. So you did the 80%. She just gave you that extra 20.
That's right.
I love it.
Promise. He knows these things because I am helping in the background.
Yes, ma'am. We know you're running the ship back there with that sweet
Power
little
of a
baby in your
mama.
arms.
The brain fog is not from Matthew's brain. It's mommy can't think straight.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you guys so much. This is so wonderful. And thank you for sending us your book. We love it. And we have a little library we're going to add it to, but we encourage everyone to pick up this book. It is super valuable. So we hope to talk to you guys again soon, and we can't wait until your next book comes out. You better keep us updated.
Yeah. I got a saved round for you.
Let's hear it.
We are trying to gain more experiences and perspectives from folks that maybe your experience was different than ours. Okay. And that is what is going into revising PPDP and going into Partner's Purpose postpartum, right? This is a living document, and I welcome feedback. If something that we have included in there is not applicable to your situation, tell me why. Hey, you're telling me to show up fully. Well, I am in this job. I work 10 to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. It's just not practical for me. I need another solution. Okay, let's figure that out. Let's put the axe on the grindstone. And because it's not just you. 3 to 5 million babies born in the United States every year. You're probably a shared experience away from someone else, right? And the whole goal is to make this better for the next group that needs it.
Yeah, I love that. Well, we will absolutely
huge.
put that in the show notes. We can even put in your email address in there so that if people want to contact you guys directly, they can do that. And we just really appreciate you guys coming on, and we appreciate your sweet girl's little additions. She was like your cheerleader back there. We love that. And we hope to talk to you guys soon.
Heck yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you guys so much for what you're doing.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on Birth, Baby. Thanks again to Longing for Orpheus for our music. You can look him up on Spotify. Remember to leave a review, share, and follow wherever you get your podcasts. See you next week.